She laughed at me in front of everyone. My wife, the woman I'd spent 10 years building a life with, mocking what made me a man, as if my worth were something to joke about. The entire office roared, wine glasses clinking, her laughter ringing louder than them all. They thought I'd just take it. They thought I'd sit there and smile like a good little husband. But they had no idea that before the night was over, her laughter would stop cold. Hey everyone, before I tell you how it happened, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and drop a comment. It helps more than you think. Now, let me take you back to that night. The evening began like 1,000 others. Me standing in front of the mirror, straightening my tie, trying to look like the kind of man who belonged beside a woman like Emily. She had that ambitious glow people mistook for confidence, the kind that drew attention in every room she entered. Tonight was her firm's annual gala, hosted in the kind of downtown ballroom where even the air felt expensive. "Daniel," she called from the bedroom, her voice sharp, "please tell me you're not wearing that tie again. It clashes with my dress." I sighed, swapped it for another, and followed her down the hall. She looked stunning in a silver gown that shimmered under the lights. But when she looked at me, it wasn't admiration in her eyes. It was assessment. The car ride was quiet except for her steady stream of advice. "Remember to talk about your promotion," she said, "and maybe skip the jokes this time." Every word stung, not because it was cruel, but because it came from the woman who once said she loved my humor. I promised to behave, told her I'd make her proud. "Good," she said, fixing her lipstick in the mirror. "This night's important. My boss will be there, and I need everything to look perfect." That word, perfect, hung in the air like a warning. The ballroom was a glittering cage. Polished marble floors reflected the chandeliers overhead, and the hum of polite laughter filled the space. Emily's colleagues gathered around, all sharp suits and calculated smiles. She introduced me like an accessory. "This is my husband, Daniel. He's in operations management." Her tone made it sound like I was a hobby she'd outgrown. Still, I played along, shook hands, smiled, listened to stories I didn't care about. I refilled her glass before she asked. I laughed at her boss's dull jokes. I did everything right. Then, the moment came. Her supervisor, a tall man with perfect posture and the confidence of someone who'd never been told no, joined our circle. Emily's demeanor shifted immediately. Her laughter became brighter, her hand brushed his arm, her posture straighter. "You know," he said to me, "Emily's been telling us about your home renovations. Sounds impressive." Before I could respond, Emily snorted softly. "Oh, Daniel, he's handy, but let's not exaggerate. He once needed a YouTube tutorial to change a doorknob." Laughter rippled through the group. My smile faltered, but I held it. She wasn't done. "He's a good man. Just not exactly what you'd call rugged." She winked, as if that softened the blow. Her boss chuckled politely, clearly uncomfortable, but she pressed on. "Last summer, he refused to go hiking because he didn't want to sweat too much." The laughter grew louder, echoing in my ears, mixing with the sound of clinking glasses and the faint hum of the string quartet. I could feel my face heating, but I didn't say a word. Not yet. When the CEO approached, the conversation turned to the firm's latest expansion. Someone joked about leadership requiring guts and grit. Emily gestured toward herself. "Guess that's why they keep promoting me," she said, her tone playful but sharp. "Daniel's more of a behind-the-scenes kind of guy. He prefers safety over risk." The CEO gave me a sympathetic look. "Every team needs balance," he said diplomatically. But I saw it, the flicker of pity. It wasn't the first time I'd seen it that I excused myself, claiming I needed some air. As I walked toward the balcony, I heard her laugh again, loud, confident, the kind of laugh that told the world she didn't fear consequences. The night air hit me like a jolt of reality. The skyline glittered, indifferent to the small humiliations of people like me. I leaned against the railing, feeling the quiet sting of her words replay in my mind. This wasn't new. It was just louder now. The jokes at dinners, The way she'd correct me in front of friends, the constant reminders that her career was taking off while mine was stable. Stable, a word that sounded safe but felt like a cage. Rough night, a voice said behind me. I turned to see a man I recognized from earlier, Martin, the firm's regional director. Older, composed, with that calm authority of someone who didn't need to prove anything. He handed me a glass of whiskey. Thought you might prefer this to champagne. I accepted it with a nod. Thanks, I said quietly, for rescuing me. Don't mention it, he replied. She's sharp, your wife. Ambitious. But sometimes ambition cuts everything around it. I didn't answer, just stared at the city lights. He took a sip of his drink. You know, he said, the strongest men aren't the loudest in the room. They're the ones who know when silence says more. His words landed harder than he probably intended. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, he added, for what it's worth, I've seen her type before. They rise fast, but the fall's always quicker than they expect. He gave me a knowing look. When that time comes, make sure you're standing tall enough not to catch her. The door opened. Emily stepped onto the balcony, her face a mix of irritation and forced charm. There you are, she said, pretending to laugh. Everyone's wondering where my husband went. Daniel, darling, don't be rude. Her tone was sugar-coated poison. Martin smiled faintly. We were just having a fascinating talk about leadership, he said smoothly. Your husband has quite an interesting perspective. Emily blinked, caught off guard. Oh, really? She asked. Absolutely, he replied. In fact, I'd like to hear more. Daniel, you ever consider consulting? You seem like a man who understands how things really work. Her face faltered for just a second, but I saw it, the flicker of doubt. I smiled politely, meeting Martin's gaze. Maybe I will, I said. I think I've been quiet long enough. She didn't laugh this time. She just stared, the night suddenly colder than before. The ride home after that night was silent, thick with tension that clung to the air like fog. Emily kept her eyes on the road, gripping the wheel tighter than necessary. I could tell she wanted to speak, but was searching for words that wouldn't make her look worse. I stared out the window, the city lights streaking past, each one reminding me of the laughter, the way she'd turned me into a punchline. When we finally reached the house, she exhaled sharply, still not looking at me. You really embarrassed me tonight, she said flatly. I turned to her, my voice calm but cutting. You're right. It must have been humiliating when your husband stopped laughing at your jokes. Her jaw tightened. It was just harmless fun, Daniel. Everyone knew I was kidding. I didn't, I said quietly, opening the car door. And I'm not sure your boss did either. I went inside without waiting for her response. The house felt unfamiliar, too quiet, too polished, as if even the walls were judging us. I loosened my tie, poured myself a drink, and sat in the living room in the dark. I thought about Martin's words, about silence speaking louder than excuses. Emily walked in a few minutes later, her heels clicking like a countdown. You're blowing this out of proportion, she said, crossing her arms. You've always been sensitive about these things. I looked at her, really looked, and saw not my wife, but someone I didn't recognize anymore. Maybe that's because you stopped treating me like a person and started treating me like a prop, I said. You needed me to make you look better. Her eyes narrowed. That's ridiculous. I've done everything for us. No, I said evenly. You've done everything for you. She turned away, pretending to straighten the books on the shelf, the same shelf I built with my own hands years ago when we still shared dreams instead of strategies. You're acting childish, she muttered. You should have stayed and supported me. Walking out made you look weak. No, I said, finishing my drink. It made me look done. I left her standing there and went upstairs, closing the door behind me. For the first time in years, I slept without waiting for her to follow. The next morning, she was already dressed for work when I came down. Her tone was clipped, businesslike. There's an event next Friday, she said, not meeting my eyes. It's a networking dinner. You'll come with me. It's important. I laughed softly. You mean it's important for you? She turned, irritation flashing across her face. Do you enjoy being difficult? No, I said. I'm just done pretending. I walked past her and out the door before she could respond. At work, I couldn't focus. The spreadsheet on my screen blurred into meaningless numbers. Martin's offer replayed in my head. Consulting. It wasn't something I'd considered seriously before, but there was something about the way he said it, like he saw something in me that Emily had spent years ignoring. During lunch, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Daniel? It's Martin. His voice was warm, steady. I've been thinking about what we discussed last night. I wasn't joking about consulting. I'm leading a regional project that could use someone with your skill set. If you're interested, we could grab coffee and talk. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Why me? I asked. Because, he said simply, I pay attention to people who know how to read a room without speaking. I agreed to meet him the next day. That evening, Emily came home late, her perfume lingering long after she'd passed by. She didn't mention last night or the morning argument. Instead, she started talking about her new campaign, her promotion, her team. I nodded in the right places, said little. At one point, she paused and looked at me. You're awfully quiet. Just thinking, I said. About what? She asked, suspicion edging her tone. About how silence can change things. She frowned but didn't press further. The next afternoon, I met Martin at a small downtown cafe. He was already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 coffees. I wasn't sure how you take it, he said. So I ordered black. Strong, no sugar. That'll work, I said, sitting across from him. He smiled. So, tell me, what do you actually enjoy doing? Not what you think you're supposed to do. What actually makes you feel alive? The question caught me off guard. I thought for a moment. Building things. Solving problems. Not just at work. Anywhere. I like seeing something take shape. He nodded. Good answer. That's what consulting is at its core. Building systems. Solving problems. You'd be surprised how few people can do both. We talked for nearly an hour. By the end, he slid a business card across the table. Think about it, he said. No promises, no pressure. Just consider it a door opening. I pocketed the card, feeling something I hadn't in years. Possibility. When I got home, Emily was already there, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine. Where were you? She asked, her voice casual but her eyes sharp. Meeting someone, I said simply. Anyone I know? Not really, I said. A potential client. She tilted her head. Client? Since when do you have clients? I smiled faintly. Since I stopped waiting for permission to have them. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. Maybe, I said, walking past her. But maybe not enough. That night, I lay awake thinking about the years I'd spent trying to fit her mold, trying to be the husband who never embarrassed her, never outshone her. Somewhere along the way, I'd shrunk myself down to keep the peace. But the man I saw in the mirror that morning felt different. He was tired, yes, but not broken. For the first time, I realized I didn't need her validation to stand tall. Over the next few days, things shifted subtly. Emily's tone softened. She started asking about my day, cooking dinner again, pretending to care. But it wasn't real concern. It was control disguised as kindness. I played along, letting her believe things were normal while I quietly laid the foundation for something else. I researched consulting firms, brushed up on project management certifications, even reconnected with old colleagues who'd once mentioned freelance work. Every step I took away from her orbit made me breathe a little easier. Then, one night, she came home buzzing with excitement. Guess what? She said, dropping her purse on the counter. My boss just invited me to lead the next big pitch. It's a huge opportunity. I smiled politely. That's great. There's a dinner tomorrow, she continued. I want you there. No more disappearing acts. I hesitated, then nodded. Sure, I said. I'll be there. She smiled triumphantly, thinking she'd won something. But she had no idea that the man who'd be standing beside her tomorrow wasn't the same one she humiliated last week. He was someone else now. Someone she couldn't control anymore. The next evening, the restaurant shimmered with candlelight and the low hum of expensive conversation. Emily was in her element, surrounded by executives who fed off confidence like oxygen. She wore a dark green dress that caught every flicker of light, her smile wide and rehearsed. I walked a step behind her as she led me through the maze of tables, greeting people by name, laughing just a little too loudly. "There they are," she said, spotting her team near the back of the room. "Try to keep up, Daniel." Her words were half joking, half command. I smiled and followed, but something in me had shifted. I wasn't there as her shadow anymore. I was there as myself. Her boss, Martin, was already seated at the table. He looked up when he saw me, his expression briefly flickering with something between surprise and approval. "Good to see you, Daniel," he said, extending a hand. Emily blinked, her mask slipping for a fraction of a second. "You two know each other?" she asked, her tone light but forced. Martin smiled. "We've had a few great conversations recently." "Smart man, your husband." She forced a laugh. "Oh, I didn't realize Daniel was exploring consulting." "Oh, he's more than exploring," Martin said easily. "His insights were instrumental in solving a problem for one of our teams." Her glass paused midair. I met her gaze across the table, calm and unbothered. "It's been an interesting few weeks," I said simply. The color drained slightly from her face, but she recovered quickly, flashing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said, "I guess I'm learning new things about my husband every day." Dinner moved forward with polite conversation, but I could feel the tension building beneath her polished exterior. Every time Martin asked for my opinion on a topic, she stiffened slightly, her fork clinking against the plate. The others at the table seemed to notice too. One of the senior partners, a woman named Claire, leaned toward me during dessert. "You have a sharp way of looking at problems, Daniel," she said. "Ever considered doing this full time?" Emily jumped in before I could respond. "He has a stable job already," she said quickly, laughing a little too loudly. "I doubt he's ready for the chaos of our world." "I think he can handle a little chaos," Martin said, smiling at me. "Sometimes new challenges bring out the best in people." The rest of the table nodded, murmuring in agreement. Emily's smile faltered again. She reached for her wine like it might shield her. When the evening ended, Martin shook my hand and said, "Let's meet next week. I've got something I think you'll want to see." Emily stood beside me, her face frozen in a polite expression that didn't match her eyes. As soon as we were in the car, she exploded. "What the hell was that?" "What was what?" I asked, buckling my seatbelt. "You sitting there acting like some corporate prodigy, like you suddenly belong in those conversations. You were supposed to be my support tonight, not my competition." I turned to her slowly, my voice steady. "I didn't realize you felt threatened by your own husband." "Don't twist this," she snapped. "It's just embarrassing. You're talking business with my superiors behind my back. Do you know how that looks?" "It looks," I said, "like someone finally saw value in me after you spent years trying to convince me I had none." She didn't respond. Her grip on the steering wheel tightened, her knuckles white. "You're enjoying this," she said quietly. "You're trying to make me look small." "I don't have to," I replied. "You're doing that on your own." The next few days were colder than winter. We barely spoke except for the basics. She left early, came home late, and when she did, she poured herself a drink and sat in silence. I used that time to focus on the opportunity forming with Martin. He'd sent me preliminary plans for a new project downtown, a redevelopment initiative that needed fresh thinking. I spent nights studying the files, sketching layouts, and drafting proposals. For the first time in years, I felt alive again. One evening, I was at my desk when Emily appeared in the doorway. "You're awfully focused lately," she said, trying for casual. "What are you working on?" "A project," I said, not looking up. "For work?" "Something like that." She hesitated. "You could at least tell me what it is." "You could have respected me at that dinner," I replied calmly. "We don't always get what we want." She glared at me for a long moment, then left without another word. A week later, Martin called. You've got good instincts, Daniel. The revisions you suggested? The team loves them. There's a meeting Monday to review the full proposal. I want you there. I hesitated. I'm not sure that's appropriate. It is, he said firmly. You earned that seat. When I told Emily, she froze mid-step. You're going where? To the firm, I said. Martin wants me to present part of the proposal. You can't, she said quickly. It's not professional. It'll look like favoritism. Funny, I said. I don't remember you worrying about appearances when you made me the joke of your last party. Her face hardened. If you do this, you're going to ruin my credibility. People will think I used my husband to get ahead. I met her eyes. Then maybe you shouldn't have treated me like someone beneath you. I walked away before she could respond. The day of the meeting, I stood in the gleaming glass lobby of the firm's headquarters, nerves buzzing under my calm exterior. Martin greeted me warmly and led me to a sleek conference room filled with executives. The walls gleamed with awards, framed success stories, and cityscape renderings. As the presentation began, I explained my designs, my reasoning, the flow of light through open spaces. To my surprise, they listened, really listened. When I finished, the senior partner smiled. You have a sharp eye, Mr. Collins. It's refreshing. My heart pounded, but I stayed composed. Martin gave me a discreet nod of approval as we left the room. He clapped me on the shoulder. That was impressive, he said. You've got natural presence. People respond to that. Thanks, I said, meaning it. I didn't think I had it in me. That's because you've been living in someone else's shadow, he replied. That night, Emily was waiting for me when I got home. I heard about the meeting, she said stiffly. Martin told the team you did well. He did, I said, hanging up my jacket. They're offering me a consulting contract. She blinked, stunned. You're not serious. Dead serious. You can't do that, she said, her voice rising. That's my company, my department. I turned to face her. Then maybe you should have treated me like an equal instead of a decoration. She stared at me, speechless, her control slipping through her fingers. For the first time in years, I felt taller, stronger, and finally seen. The following days felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, waiting to see who would jump first. Emily moved through the house with the precision of someone holding a fragile performance together. She still talked about her projects, her deadlines, her meetings, but there was a crack in her voice now, a tension that hadn't been there before. I didn't push her. I didn't need to. My silence was enough to unnerve her. She'd glance at me while pretending to scroll through her phone, as if trying to read whether I'd changed or simply stopped caring. The truth was both. I was no longer her prop, and I no longer needed her approval. I'd signed the consulting contract with Martin's firm 2 days earlier. It was modest, but it was mine. My name, my work, my effort. When I told Emily, she stood perfectly still, her face unreadable. So, you went ahead with it, she said finally. I did, I replied. You didn't even ask my opinion. I looked at her, steady and calm. You lost the right to make my decisions when you started mocking them in public. She exhaled sharply. You're making a mistake, Daniel. You don't understand how these corporate relationships work. People will talk. Then let them, I said, walking away. The next week passed in quiet friction. I spent my evenings drafting reports and reviewing blueprints, while Emily rehearsed presentations in the other room. Sometimes I caught her staring at me, a look of something like regret flickering across her face before she looked away. One night, she came into my office holding 2 glasses of wine. Truce, she said softly. I hesitated before accepting. I was hard on you, she admitted. I wanted so badly to impress people that I stopped caring how I made you feel. Maybe I went too far. Her voice was low, genuine in a way I hadn't heard in years. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she added quickly. Just perspective. I studied her for a long moment. Perspective, I repeated. That's funny, because that's exactly what I found. She blinked, confused. What do you mean? I mean, I finally remembered what it feels like to have my own story, my own direction. She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. Does that story still include me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer right away. That depends, I said, on whether you want to be a partner in it or the villain. A few days later, Martin called with unexpected news. We've been reviewing your recent submissions, he said. The senior team's impressed. They want you to take point on the community development section. My heart leapt. That's a huge responsibility, I said. Exactly, he replied. You've earned it. And we're announcing the new initiative at Friday's company reception. I'd like you to attend. The moment I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Anticipation, not dread. When I told Emily, she froze, her fork clattering onto the plate. Friday, she repeated. You mean the same reception I'm organizing? I nodded. That's the one. You can't just show up there as a consultant. People will think you're trying to upstage me. I raised an eyebrow. Why would they think that, unless you've made it clear that I'm beneath you? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Just, please don't make a scene, she said quietly. Don't embarrass me. I almost laughed at the irony. I'll do my best, I said, though she and I both knew I meant something else entirely. Friday arrived, and with it, a strange calm. I dressed in a charcoal suit, the same one I'd worn the night she humiliated me. Only this time, it felt different, like armor instead of expectation. When I walked into the ballroom, the same chandeliers gleamed above, the same polished laughter filled the air, but everything had changed. I wasn't there as her plus one anymore. I was there because I belonged. Emily spotted me from across the room, her expression carefully composed. You came, she said as I approached. I said I would. Her colleagues greeted me politely, a few with genuine curiosity. Martin appeared soon after, greeting me warmly. Glad you made it, he said. The presentation starts in 15 minutes. You'll stand beside me. Emily's head snapped toward him. He's presenting, she said, her voice higher than usual. Martin smiled. He's been instrumental in shaping the project. Of course he's presenting. As the crowd gathered around the stage, I saw Emily retreat to the edge of the room, trying to hold her composure. Martin began the speech, introducing the initiative, its goals, its impact. Then he turned to me. This next part was inspired by someone who reminded us that strength doesn't always look loud. Daniel, would you share your vision? I stepped forward, the lights bright but warm on my face. My voice didn't shake. When I first looked at this project, I said, I saw more than a blueprint. I saw a chance to build spaces where people could reconnect with each other and with themselves. I spoke about design, community, renewal, but beneath it all, I was talking about something else, about finding purpose after being dismissed, about rebuilding self-worth from the ground up. The room was silent, hanging on every word. When I finished, the applause was immediate, genuine, loud. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emily, her hands still, her face pale, her eyes shining with something she couldn't name. Afterward, people came up to shake my hand, to compliment the work. Martin clapped me on the back. You did it, he said. You owned that room. I smiled. Feels good to finally build something that matters. When the crowd thinned, I found Emily standing near the balcony doors. She looked up as I approached. You were incredible, she said softly. I didn't know you had that in you. Neither did you, I said. That's the problem. She nodded, her voice trembling. I made you small so I could feel bigger. And now that you're standing tall, I don't know where that leaves me. That's for you to figure out, I said gently, just like I had to. A tear rolled down her cheek, and she quickly brushed it away. I'm transferring, she said finally. Martin told me they're opening a West Coast branch. It's time for me to start over too. I nodded. Then maybe we both got what we needed. She hesitated. Can I ask you one thing? Go ahead. Do you still love me? The question hit hard, but I didn't flinch. I think I stopped loving the version of you who needed to win at everything, I said quietly. But the woman who's standing in front of me right now, the one finally being honest, I'll always care about her. She smiled sadly. Goodbye, Daniel. Goodbye, Emily. Later that night, I stood alone on the same balcony where everything had started. The city lights stretched out before me, endless and alive. For the first time in years, I wasn't defined by someone else's story. I had written my own. The noise from inside faded as I took a deep breath, the cool air filling me with quiet certainty. Sometimes, respect isn't given, it's reclaimed. And sometimes the best revenge isn't anger or pride. It's peace. If you've been through something like this, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell me your story in the comments. Because sometimes the quietest comebacks are the loudest victories.